to enjoy the story. In my previous life, I died on the night he married my sister. To test the difficulty of childbirth, blood and ice, one color, two lives. When I woke up again, I couldn't believe I had returned to before my wedding day. The matchmaker came to propose marriage. I coldly smiled, turned my head and married his elder brother instead. Dear listeners, please enjoy the story. Second miss, the carriage is ready. Would you like to change clothes first? Belle, my close maid, urged worriedly, seeing me not moving at all. She and Sparrow, another maid, couldn't help but exchange confused glances. Today there's a polo match she'll also attend. If it were before, I would have been excited, unable to wait, carefully applying makeup, powdering my face, hurrying out the door. But now I just sit quietly, sewing the last stitch, pulling the thread, biting it off, then carefully wrapping the pair of cushions I just completed. Belle, quick and intelligent, immediately asks second miss, "Are you planning to bring the cushions as a gift for second young Master Blackwood at the polo match?" Adrian had just mentioned a few days ago that his knees get cold when reading at night, so I hurriedly found top-quality materials to make cushions for him, staying up several nights to finish sewing. But now, being reborn again, I won't do the foolish thing of putting my warm face against cold buttocks anymore. I said no, put them away carefully for me. Next time when mother sends things to eldest brother, send them together. My eldest brother works as a judicial commissioner in Yu province, only coming home twice a year. After giving instructions, I changed clothes to go out anyway. On the carriage, third sister Jade gently called out, "Second sister, you're here already." I coldly responded with a mocking smile, "Late already." "Hello, sister." She hurriedly replied, "Second sister doesn't need to be so formal. That second sister is willing to bring me along is my good fortune." She still maintained her humble appearance as before, the appearance that had bewitched me in my previous life into trusting her. Who could have known that this gentle, harmless-looking person had always been eyeing her own sister's husband? When we arrived at the polo grounds, excited cheers were already ringing out everywhere. Beside the field, viewing stands were erected where young lords and ladies freely rode horses galloping fast. I found our family's tent and sat down. Jade sat to one side, looking around the polo match which was full of noble aristocrats. On the field, two teams were engaged in an extremely intense match. I watched the young men, majestic and dignified on horseback. Among them, the most prominent was second young Master Adrian Blackwood. With one hand he controlled the horse, the other skillfully swung the polo mallet, his handsome and dignified appearance, strong bearing. How infatuated I was with him in my previous life, now I despised him just as much. I coldly turned away only to see Jade staring dazedly at Adrian. In my previous life Jade took advantage of when I was pregnant, coming to visit me daily under the pretense of concern. I even thought the sisterly affection between us was deep and genuine. I never knew that she and Adrian had been secretly communicating behind my back. Adrian didn't even care about my blood in my belly, still insisting on marrying Jade. On their wedding night, I was so angry I went into premature labor. The baby in my belly, I went into early labor. The maids and midwife went to find help but never returned. I collapsed exhausted on the cold floor, vaguely hearing the festive noises from the front hall. And I died alone on that cold winter night. This life, I swear I won't give you the chance to harm me again. I clenched my fists, determined and unshakable. The incense had just burned out when Adrian's team won the match and claimed the prize. The prize for the next match was a lavish banquet. In my previous life, I once wanted to please Adrian by personally going onto the field to win, then right there gifting the prize to him, making the whole field notice me. But it was only years later I learned he never cared about that prize, throwing it in a corner to gather dust. Looking at this scene, I decided to change everything. I ordered Belle to prepare, I would compete. Belle tied my sleeves, helping me be more agile. I took the polo mallet and jumped on horseback. From childhood I was familiar with horseback riding and polo, mastering all the skills. This match had no surprises when I won and claimed the prize of that lavish banquet. Amid the audience's cheers, I received the golden tray, turning around to see Adrian standing with several young lords. They looked at me laughing mockingly, some even pushing Adrian toward me. They seemed certain I would offer the prize to him. I didn't even glance at them, walking past their faces, leaving behind confused expressions. I returned to my tent and gave the prize box to Belle to put away carefully. Second miss. I untied my sleeve ties and lifted the teacup for a sip. Beside me, the young ladies in the tent were discussing the talented young lords on the field. A young lady in yellow asked who that lord in black was. Another lady in green immediately answered, "You mean the one standing not far behind Adrian?" "Ah, that's the eldest son of the Blackwood family. Adrian is his younger half-brother." The lady in yellow exclaimed in surprise, "He's the grandson of General Huaihua. He joined the military alone." The lady in green fanned herself and sighed, "That's right. Haven't you met him before? He's extremely handsome, just unfortunate that fate hasn't been kind. 3 years in the military and still just a minor 9th rank official. His future promotion path probably won't be easy." I quietly looked over and saw the tall, handsome man standing behind Adrian. That was his elder brother, Marcus Blackwood. Marcus's mother was the only daughter of General Huaihua, but he lost his mother when young. Later the Duke married Adrian's mother as his second wife. In my previous life, after marrying into the Blackwood family, I could count on my fingers the times I met Marcus. He was 3 years older than Adrian, quiet, accomplished in both literature and martial arts, but too upright and didn't know how to flatter. His maternal family couldn't support him either. By the time I died, he was still just a low-ranking minor official and had never married. My father was the junior minister of the Court of Judicial Review, while the Blackwood family was Duke William's noble household. The marriage alliance between our two families was understood without saying. By order and status, I should have married Marcus, but because his mother died early and he wasn't valued in the family, while my mother and Adrian's mother, Lady Catherine, were close friends, the two had long intended to match Adrian and me. From childhood I had determined I would marry Adrian, 2 years older than me. Every day I followed him around calling, second brother, and chased away any girls who wanted to approach him. But my love was like a goddess's beautiful dream, while Adrian didn't care at all. He only liked gentle, romantic girls while dismissing me as crude and straightforward. He married me only to please his parents. What a pity! I once proudly thought I had found my ideal husband. After returning from the polo grounds, I received news that father had returned home from court. I immediately brought the prize I had just won to present to him. After learning the source of the prize, father teased, "Why didn't you give it to your Adrian?" I laughed and answered, "I'm not that foolish. Good things should naturally be presented to my beloved father first." Father gently patted my head. In my previous life, because of Jade and Adrian's affair, I made father so angry he fell ill and couldn't get up. Now living again, I see everything clearly, especially those who are human to your face but demons behind your back. I will never misplace my trust again, never let family members be hurt or enemies rejoice. A few days later, the manor held a birthday banquet for grandmother. I sat with the clan sisters. After 3 rounds of wine, I felt a bit tipsy, so I made an excuse to leave, taking Belle and Sparrow to withdraw. I went out to the courtyard to breathe and sober up. Suddenly from afar I heard people talking. I retreated, hiding in the archway, and saw a group of servants supporting Adrian. Beside him was a young lord from the Shen family. Adrian's face was flushed, walking unsteadily, clearly very drunk. Lord Shen, seeing me like finding a savior, hurriedly said, "Second miss, your Adrian is drunk. The wine even spilled on his clothes. Could you call some maids to help him change, then ask the kitchen to make a bowl of subbering soup?" In my previous life, at this time I had snuck out to find Adrian. Seeing him drunk, I hurriedly went to take care of him, not caring that I was an unmarried daughter, throwing aside all propriety. But now I've kept my distance from Adrian, not wanting anything to do with him. Even if he collapsed, it wouldn't concern me. I calmly turned back and said to a servant, "Did you hear Lord Shen's instructions clearly? Go do it quickly." Having spoken, I walked away coldly, bowing to Lord Shen and Adrian, then left without looking back, taking the maids away. I told myself if only I hadn't gone outside, truly unlucky. Just as I returned to my room, footsteps sounded behind me along with a cold voice containing sternness. "Second miss, please stop." It was Adrian. Hearing that steady voice, it didn't sound like a drunk person at all. I turned back annoyed, coldly asking, "What does second young master want to instruct?" He leaned against a peach tree. Though drunk, he still maintained some clarity. He laughed coldly. "Second miss seems rather cold toward me." I replied, "If there's something, second young master, please speak directly." I now only wanted to stay far away from him. Every word with him made me feel disgusted. He continued. A few days ago at the polo grounds, second miss didn't deign to notice me. Today upon meeting, you immediately turn and leave. I wonder what I've done wrong to make second miss despise me so. Hearing his words, it was as if I was the heartless, unrighteous one. If I didn't understand his character clearly, perhaps I would have misunderstood that I truly held an important position in his heart. I smiled faintly, calmly saying, "One young and knave before, I indeed bothered second young master somewhat. I hope you'll forgive me. Now that we've come of age, both sides must maintain propriety, men and women are different. If there's business, second young master can send someone to relay it, to avoid others misunderstanding and ruining both our reputations." He was choked by my words, momentarily not knowing how to respond. I continued, "Second young master, I must return to my room, please excuse me." Having spoken, I withdrew my fake smile and walked away. But after just a few steps, I heard Adrian's cold laugh behind me saying meaningfully, "Such a game of push and pull." I turned back angry, forcing a smile. "Second master is talking nonsense. Must be from drinking too much. Quickly have Steward Chen bring sobering soup for you. Drinking too much harms the liver. Young master must take care of your health." Having spoken, I turned and left, not wanting to look at his face one more second. In just a few steps I'd returned to my own courtyard. I told myself, what push and pull game. How disgusting. Does he think himself some heaven-sent treasure? Looking back, I only blame myself for lacking self-respect in my previous life, letting Adrian see himself as a divine gift. On the outside Adrian was glamorous, but inside he was empty. His mother Lady Catherine was also a schemer, fake and hypocritical. Before, out of respect for my family, she still yielded a bit, but her relatives weren't easy to deal with. In my previous life, after marrying into the Blackwood family, I suffered countless grievances from them. But for love of Adrian, I was still willing to endure. Now I'd rather marry a poor but truly kind man. I absolutely refuse to step into the Blackwood family's tiger den again. Calculating the timeline, I've been reborn to age 15. In just one more year I'll marry into the Blackwood family and die at 19. To escape this tragic fate of marrying Adrian, I must plan early. I have quite a bit of wealth in hand, dozens of acres of good farmland in the capital's suburbs, along with estates and shops. All were dowry my parents prepared for me. In my previous life, Adrian spent all day in brothels and gambling, depleting the family assets. Fearing my father-in-law would blame him, I sold my entire dowry to help him pay debts. But this life I'll carefully protect my dowry. While still young, I must find ways to profit from these assets to have more wealth for protection later. Summer arrived. I disguised myself and took a carriage to my estate to inspect it. Wearing a veiled hat, I stepped down and walked toward the golden rice fields rippling like waves. Earlier I had sent a letter to the estate manager. He stood waiting for me at the field's edge. After leading me around the fields, he reported on the harvest yield. I saw some farmers catching insects and asked if locusts had appeared. The manager wiped his sweat and respectfully answered, "Yes, second miss. Since early this month we've discovered pests. No matter how much we eliminate, they won't go away, increasing daily." I suddenly remembered in my previous life we also encountered a locust plague. Thousands of miles of land turned red, crops completely lost. Afterward I searched ancient books and learned many methods to eliminate locusts. I instructed the manager to divide the fields in 2 parts. Turn one part into paddy fields since locusts don't attack paddy fields. In the remaining part, plant beans, peas, sesame and other crops locusts don't like eating. Additionally, buy several flocks of ducks to release, they'll eat all the locusts before they can fly. When the ducks are fat, they can be sold for money, double benefit. The manager, after listening, praised repeatedly. "Excellent, excellent. Second miss is truly intelligent and wise. This old man will remember everything." I also instructed that he could spread these methods to other farmers so they could procure early. If a locust plague occurred, not just my fields would be affected. I looked into the distance and saw my land was only about 200 acres. At the foot of the mountain was a large strip of good fields, unclear who owned them. I casually asked whose fields those were. The manager respectfully answered, reporting to second miss, "Those belong to a steward surnamed Sun. But I heard they just manage for others. Perhaps the owner finds it inconvenient to show their face." I didn't ask further, just looked around once more then got in the carriage to return. When the carriage reached the mountain road outside, suddenly several loud shouts rang out. The carriage was stopped. The coachman trembled, asking, What do you want to do?" A rough voice shouted, "Leave your money before you can pass." I was startled. These were clearly mountain bandits. In the carriage, Beryl were so frightened they went limp, collapsing on the seats. This time going out I only brought one coachman and one servant girl. The rest were all weak women, hard to escape safely. However, having died once before, I wasn't afraid, only believing in fate. Facing this situation, I quickly calmed myself. I called out loudly, "If you heroes only want money, this young lady will leave everything. I only hope you won't harm anyone." Outside, the bandits heard my voice and began murmuring. "Inside is a young miss. Her voice sounds so pleasant. Bring her out to see." One of them climbed onto the carriage. The coachman and servant girl panickedly tried to stop him, but it was useless. A bandit even came to the carriage intending to lift the curtain. Belle and Sparrow screamed in fear, desperately holding the curtain closed to prevent him from opening it. Just at that chaotic moment, a miserable scream suddenly rang out outside. I recognized it as the voice of the bandit leader who had demanded money. Then a deep, authoritative male voice spoke up, "Robbing in broad daylight without masks, is there no law in your eyes?" I was wondering about this voice when I heard the bandits begin cursing, followed by sounds of fighting. Unable to resist, I peeked through the curtain and saw a man holding a dragon-decorated staff fighting 5 bandits. The staff in his hands swung like a flying dragon. The bandits couldn't even get close, beaten until scattered. When the man turned around and I saw his face clearly, I was startled and quickly lowered the curtain. It was Marcus Blackwood. The bandits cried out, calling for their parents, then fled. The coachman gratefully thanked Marcus repeatedly, saying things like, "Life-saving benefactor." I couldn't show my face, just sat quietly in the carriage and called out, "Thank you, hero, for helping us. This great kindness, this young lady will never forget. In the future I will surely repay you." Marcus, with an upright expression, answered, "Seeing injustice on the road and helping is just a small matter. Young lady doesn't need to take it to heart." Having spoken, he bowed and took his leave. I quietly watched through the curtain gap as he and an attendant walked into the deep forest. I hadn't expected to meet Marcus here. But what was his reason for coming? I had no time to investigate. My time wasn't plentiful. These recent days I've been busy learning accounting and bookkeeping. Whenever I have surplus money, I buy more fields and shops. I know 3 years later the shops on Whitestone Street will prosper, so I spent a large sum to buy a row of shops along that street. Relying on shop rent and income from the estates, I also set aside a portion for lending and accumulating gold. Every day I'm busy with business plans, endlessly happy. 2 months later, Mother insisted on taking me to visit Peach Garden Temple outside the city to pray for blessings. Peach Garden Temple is a place where incense flourishes, famous for praying for marriage. Many unmarried men and women come here with family to pray for a good match. I had planned to find an excuse to refuse, but then remembered in my previous life at this same time, Mother had taken me to Peach Garden Temple, and we happened to meet Adrian's mother. That time when I saw Adrian, I was as happy as a bee finding sugar, clinging to him, demanding we go sightseeing together. On the way, he even picked a hibiscus flower for me. I was so moved, thinking he also had feelings for me. Who knew this was just his habitual trick? The maids in his household had all received flowers he picked. Thinking back, I feel so foolish for drying the flower he gave me and placing it by my bedside as a treasure to look at daily. The more I remember the foolish things I did in my previous life, the more uncomfortable I feel. Unable to escape Mother's request any other way, I had to remember everything in my heart and agree to go. I deliberately arranged to invite Jade to go out together. When Mother got in the carriage, she discovered Jade was also present. She was surprised and speechless. I quickly took her arm, sweetly saying, "Mother, third sister was bored at home. Your daughter brought her along to have company on the road for conversation and fun." Mother glanced at me but said nothing more. When we arrived at Peach Garden Temple's gate, indeed we saw the carriage from Duke William's household. My mother and Lady Catherine chatted intimately while I stood behind with a bright smile, not even glancing at Adrian. I caught sight of Jade shyly casting affectionate glances toward Adrian. I just sneered coldly, calmly following Mother up the steps. After finishing prayers, The two mothers wanted to find the abbot to inquire about something, so they told us to wander freely. A young Taoist boy announced there was a clear spring behind the forest. Many believers brought bottles to collect spring water. I already knew about this clearly because the hibiscus scene Adrian once gave me was also picked from that forest. The two mothers happily told us to also go collect spring water. The servants and maids prepared water bottles and the whole group went together. I deliberately walked slowly, letting Jade and Adrian go ahead. Halfway there, I pretended to stumble. Belle and Sparrow quickly supported me. Adrian looked displeased while Jade worriedly ran over asking, "Second sister, what's wrong?" I gently answered, "It's nothing. Just twisted my ankle a little." I waved my handkerchief then sat on a roadside rock, telling Jade and Adrian, "I'll rest a moment and be fine. You two don't need to worry." Jade softly said, "Let me stay with second sister." If I hadn't seen her true face before, I might have been moved by these words. The more hatred in my heart, the brighter I smiled in response. "Thank you, third sister. I'm fine. You all continue going to get spring water. Don't be late. Remember to bring back my portion too." I said this while giving my water bottle to Belle to pass to Jade's maid. Hearing me say this, though saying she would stay with me, Jade still pretended to express regret for a few sentences, then left with Adrian. Before leaving, Adrian turned back to look at me several times. I smiled to see them off as they walked into the forest. After they had gone far, I immediately stood up as if nothing had happened. "Let's go," I told the maids who were stunned. Sparrow, still not understanding, said surprised, "Second miss, your foot isn't." Belle, more clever, quickly pinched Sparrow, signaling her to be quiet. I found a resting spot in the forest and had Belle and Sparrow set out tea implements. I sipped tea while admiring the autumn scenery gradually coloring the mountains. About 3/4 of an hour later, Adrian and Jade returned. I saw on Jade's head was pinned a fresh, vibrant hibiscus flower. I smiled and praised. "That flower on third sister's head is truly extremely fitting. It reminds me of the line hibiscus cannot compare to a beauty's countenance." Jade shyly lowered her head. "Second sister, don't tease me. I didn't ask about the flower's origin, just smiled and had Belle use the spring water just collected to make tea." Adrian and Jade sat down to drink tea together. I deliberately praised how well matched they were, from their interests to their appearances. My praise made Adrian glance at me with displeasure, while Jade blushed even more, too embarrassed to say anything. On the way back to the city, Adrian suddenly said, "Second miss, may I speak with you privately?" I guessed what he would say, surely just sentences like, "What do you mean? What game are you playing?" I smiled and answered, "Second young master, just speak directly. No need to be reserved." He glanced around, signaling everyone to step back, but I immediately stopped him. "No need to step back. Whatever it is, just say it clearly." Jade and the maids looked at each other bewildered. Adrian gritted his teeth asking, "What do you mean?" I thought to myself, I guessed correctly what he meant. I calmly answered, "I don't mean anything. If second young master only wants to repeat these meaningless questions, I don't mind continuing this game." Having spoken, I casually left, inwardly telling myself, what else could I mean? Don't I just want to quickly match Adrian and Jade, this well-suited couple? 1/8 tails, 1/2 a jinn. The gentleman helps others accomplish good things. Jade is the one who can truly enjoy romance and pleasure with Adrian, their hearts and minds in harmony. It's just a pity that Jade is only a concubine's daughter with low birth. Her dream of marrying into the Duke's household as the principal wife is no different from daydreaming. However, our family has never had anyone become a concubine. If Adrian weren't so ambitious, he could completely find a clean family to take as his principal wife. I no longer want to care about matters from my previous life. Everything was because I gave my heart wrongly and suffered the consequences myself. Now living again, I have no intention of revenge. I only want to live for myself. Let them do what they like, as long as they don't obstruct my affairs. Autumn passed and winter came. Only less than 2 months remained until New Year's. As usual, I went to the pawn shop to check the accounts. While the shopkeeper and I were calculating, arguing suddenly erupted outside. I listened carefully and heard a maid speaking urgently. "The pawn ticket clearly states 3 taels of silver. I even showed it to you that day. How can you say it's short?" A man angrily retorted, "My wet nurse only brought back 2 taels and 500 wen. Your servants also said so. My mother doesn't know how to read. You're clearly trying to cheat. The maid refused to back down. How are we cheating people? Is there a witness? The man said angrily, the witness is my wet nurse. The money brought back wasn't short a penny. Now I want to redeem my wet nurse's hairpin. You should return the correct amount on the pawn ticket. The shopkeeper hurriedly went outside, using gentle words to calm thing. Young master, don't be angry. We'll resolve this satisfactorily. Hearing the man's voice, I felt it was familiar. I peeked through the door crack. The person arguing with the maid, face flushed red, wasn't it Marcus? Beside him was a white-haired wet nurse, crying while saying, forget it, forget it. It's all because this old servant's eyes are dim. Let's not argue anymore. Marcus said angrily, the money isn't much, but we can't suffer this loss. Business must be fair. You can't openly cheat like this. Seeing the maid about to argue with Marcus again, the shopkeeper hurriedly stood up to mediate, constantly advising both sides. I already understood the whole story. Last time Marcus had saved me. I was just worrying about not having a chance to repay him. Now while they were still arguing, I called Belle over and instructed, go tell shopkeeper Wang that gentleman is an old acquaintance of mine. Tell him to immediately return the hairpin to him. Belle immediately went outside and whispered a few words in the shopkeeper's ear. After listening, shopkeeper Wang hurriedly smiled and had the maid retrieve the wet nurse's hairpin to return to Marcus. Marcus wanted to give him 70 yuan, but the shopkeeper didn't dare accept it, only saying this was a small gift from their owner for the young master. Marcus then asked who their owner was. Shopkeeper Wang was clever and naturally wouldn't reveal my identity, just smiling without answering. Marcus's gaze turned to look at Belle, making her tremble slightly and hurriedly retreat. Finally Marcus accepted the hairpin and led the wet nurse away. I couldn't help but sigh. Remembering Adrian, he spent money extravagantly. Just going out drinking he could throw around dozens of taels of silver. Yet Marcus, the legitimate eldest son of the Duke's household, had to argue over small change. His wet nurse, for some unknown reason, had to pawn her hairpin. She must be in dire straits. The Duke's household treating their legitimate eldest son so unfairly was truly shameful. I increasingly realized Adrian was just a wastrel who couldn't compare to Marcus's upright integrity. Thinking back on how I blindlead Adrian was truly a huge mistake. After returning home, Mother immediately had someone summon me. After asking a few questions, she said, Luna dear, a few days ago I met the Grand Duchess again. She mentioned the matter between you and Adrian. Just hearing this opening, I already felt nothing good would come. Sure enough, Mother continued, I think next year you'll turn 16 and Adrian will be 17. Matching you together, it's also time to discuss marriage. What was coming had come. I took a deep breath and calmly said, isn't he Duke's eldest son still unmarried? Why must the second son marry first? Isn't Mother afraid people will gossip and laugh? I asked. Mother lightly laughed, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. I also said the same to the Duchess. But the Duchess said their eldest son is always stationed at the military camp, never coming home. Even wanting to arrange his marriage isn't possible. Moreover, you know the eldest son's situation clearly. What family of standing would be willing to marry their daughter to him? We can't make Adrian remain unmarried waiting for him, can we? I thought to myself, not being home is even better. Both can be at peace, unrelated to each other. I even hoped my future husband would be someone frequently away from home. While lost in thought, Mother continued. Next year Adrian will take the civil service exam. The Duke's wife said they should find a wife to restrain him, help him focus more. I also said you and Adrian have been childhood sweethearts since young, understanding each other's temperaments well, so the Duchess can rest assured in trusting Adrian to you. Understanding each other's temperaments. I laughed coldly. In my previous life when I married into the Duke's household, I discovered he kept countless chambermaids. Anyone in the household with a bit of beauty had ambiguous relations with him. The Duke's wife truly knew how to manage, not a single word about these matters leaked outside. Everyone outside still thought Adrian was just a young man who liked to play. After marriage, to help Adrian focus on his studies, I had to play the villain and chase away all the women in his rooms. Because of this, rumors spread outside that I was a jealous, vicious person. How many nights I stayed up late with him studying. I can't even remember how many days and nights passed. Finally he passed the exam, but not only was he ungrateful to me, He even took the opportunity to buy new maids and take concubines. Among them was a maid named Crystal. He even specially rewarded her, but even as a concubine, Crystal wasn't qualified, she could only be his mistress. Later Crystal became pregnant and came begging for status, but was beaten and driven out by the Duke's wife with a stick. Crystal miscarried, her body damaged, then was sold away. When she fell into dire straits, Adrian didn't show the slightest pity, just let go and immediately forgot her, continuing to seek new pleasures. When every night Adrian was still immersed in banquets with beautiful women, I should have realized he was originally a heartless, cruel person. At that time, Mother was still discussing with me about New Year's, saying she would ask the matchmaker to go to the Blackwood household to discuss. On the surface I appeared obedient, agreeing to Mother's arrangements, but in my heart I was calculating how to escape this marriage. Marry Adrian. Unless I wanted to die again. Never. I immediately had Belle find people to investigate Adrian. 2 days later, Belle returned to report that today Adrian was again drunk at the 100 Flowers Pavilion, intimate with several courtesans, including Crystal. I remembered Crystal wasn't easy to deal with. She had relationships with many young lords, always hoping someone would redeem her and take her as a concubine to climb higher. Among the young lords pursuing Crystal was one surnamed Bay from a transport business family, wealthy with many connections to court officials. He was arrogant, often heard of getting drunk and fighting in the streets, always using money to settle troubles. When Crystal was pregnant and went to Adrian demanding status, he refused, making her cry resentfully that if she'd known, she would have chosen Lord Bay. At least he had conscience and would give her status. I then thought, very good, everything seemed ready. I decided to let them handle their own fates. One day when I knew Adrian had gone to the 100 Flowers Pavilion to find Crystal again, I immediately had Belle send someone to inform Lord Bay. That night I slept peacefully, a dreamless, peaceful sleep. The next morning while having breakfast with Mother, Nanny Jo, Mother's close attendant, hurriedly ran in and whispered something in her ear. After listening, Mother's expression changed. She urgently asked, "Really? Explain clearly." I listened carefully, hearing Nanny Jo glance at me awkwardly. I joked, "Nanny Jo, what important matter is there that even I can't hear?" Nanny Jo laughed lightly. Just some unsavory matters that would dirty second Mrs. ears. Mother, with the authority of the mistress of the house, wiped her mouth and said, "Tell her. Sooner or later she'll know." Nanny Jo lowered her voice. Last night, second young master of Duke William's household had a conflict with a drunk young lord and accidentally injured him. Hearing this, I thought the matter wasn't as simple as Nanny Jo described. I asked, "Are the injuries serious?" Nanny Jo answered, "This old servant doesn't know clearly, but I heard that young lord's family doesn't want to let it go. They insist on going to court." I showed no reaction. Mother thought I was worried about Adrian, so she comforted me, probably encountered some scoundrel who knew Adrian was from the Duke's household and wanted to find an excuse to extort money. This matter just needs some silver to resolve smoothly. I didn't believe Lord Bay would let it go so easily. I just needed to wait and see the outcome. The people I sent to investigate quickly returned with news that last night Lord Bay had gone to the 100 Flowers Pavilion. Out of jealousy over Crystal, he picked a fight with Adrian, leading to a brawl. Adrian had trained in martial arts for a few years and broke Lord Bay's arm. Lord Bay's servants immediately seized Adrian and took him to the Kaifeng prefecture to file charges. The Kaifeng prefect, hearing the one who caused injury was from Duke William's household, didn't dare accept the case immediately but temporarily detained him for further investigation. The Duke's household was famous everywhere. Touching one would affect the whole. The household wanted to use money to settle this matter, but Lord Bay's family refused, insisting Adrian must face the law. Currently both sides were causing an uproar in the court. Mother initially didn't take the matter seriously until the case spread throughout the city, forcing Duke William's household to seek help everywhere. Only then did she become alarmed and worried. She asked my father, "If Adrian is convicted, won't he be unable to take the civil service exam?" My father, as junior minister of the Court of Judicial Review, naturally understood the situation clearly. He advised Mother not to worry about others' affairs. Mother gently said, "Isn't Adrian going to be our son-in-law in the future? Can't you think of a way to help him a little?" Father sternly said, "What do you understand? In the capital, at the feet of the emperor, especially at times like this, we must stay far from trouble. If I get involved now, people will surely find fault. Mother still wouldn't give up. Can we just stand by and watch Adrian suffer without helping? Father angrily raised his voice. Woman's business. If today the one who committed the crime was from our family, would the Duke's household intervene? Son-in-law. Up to now the marriage matter isn't even settled. What are you worried about? I stood behind the screen listening to everything, couldn't help but agree with father. Adrian's crimes were already clear. Our family of integrity would never get involved in such matters. I stepped out from hiding, calmly bowed to mother and father, then clearly said, "Daughter doesn't want to marry second young Master Blackwood." Mother was shocked. Before she could scold, she could only exclaim, "What nonsense are you saying?" I continued, "Mother, second young Master Blackwood keeps countless chambermaids, plays around day and night, a completely dissolute libertine. Such a person, I truly don't deserve to marry." I exposed everything about Adrian right in front of mother, but she didn't believe it, saying, "Who did you hear spreading these baseless rumors? You've known him since childhood. Don't you know his character? These must be jealous, slanderous words." I calmly replied, "Mother, there's no wall that wind can't penetrate. If you don't believe it, you can have someone investigate what's been happening at the Duke's household. I swear before heaven and earth, not half a word is false. Adrian has done many things harmful to morality, but the Duke's household fears the Duchess, so no one dares speak out." Mother, hearing me speak, was tongue-tied. Father remained silent. I continued exposing. Adrian even had a chambermaid who got pregnant, but the Duchess forced her to abort, ultimately leading to her death. Even with the courage of heaven, I wouldn't joke about human life. All these things, in my previous life, I knew as soon as I entered the Blackwood family. But at that time I was blinded, thinking he was perfect. I once stood behind him cursing that maid for being shameless, daring to seduce the young master, deserving such consequences. Who knew years later I would suffer the same fate? Truly ironic. Mother choked up. How can this be?" Father interjected, "I've also heard about this. That maid's family once wanted to file charges, but the Blackwood family used money to silence them." Hearing this, mother's face turned pale, unable to speak. After a while mother finally found her voice. But our family and the Blackwood family have always been close. Now that Adrian is in trouble, if we stay away, wouldn't that be heartless and unrighteous?" I calmly replied, "The Blackwood family doesn't only have Adrian as a son. If we want to form a marriage alliance, why must it be him?" Hearing this, both father and mother were stunned. Mother didn't believe it, asking again, "What do you mean?" I answered decisively, "If mother insists I marry into the Blackwood family, then I'd rather marry the eldest young master." My words made both parents change color. Mother immediately got angry, slapping the table. "Have you gone mad? Do you know what kind of person the Blackwood family's eldest young master is? He's not even as good as a decent servant. Marrying him, wouldn't that be a joke to the world?" I calmly replied, "If I'm going to be laughed at by the world, then I'd rather choose someone I'm willing to accept." Mother asked in shock, "You like the Blackwood family's eldest young master?" I calmly answered, "It's not about liking or not liking, but if I must choose between him and Adrian, I'd rather choose the eldest young master." After I spoke, mother couldn't believe her ears, unable to accept that her future son-in-law would change from Adrian to Marcus. Mother still stubbornly said, "Adrian hasn't been convicted yet. If he escapes this, he might turn over a new leaf and focus on his studies. In the future he could still pass the exams and rise to high position. Who would remember these dirty matters then? Him turning over a new leaf would be strange," I thought with a cold smile. "Mother, a leopard can't change its spots. Those who don't uphold morality, even if they rise high, will still fall." I spoke eloquently. "Don't look down on the Blackwood's eldest young master. People often say don't despise the poor young man. He has his own position in the military. Moreover, he's the legitimate eldest son, rightful and proper. Now that Adrian has ruined his reputation, after the Duke passes away, who knows whose hands the title will fall into?" Mother heard my words and didn't know how to respond. Even if I was just speaking wildly, Marcus's path to advancement wasn't very smooth. But I didn't mind. Even if he remained a minor official all his life, I had enough money to live worry-free. If he betrayed me like his brother, I still had ways to protect myself. Father, who had been silent, now supported me. The Blackwood's eldest young master. Though his official position isn't high, his comrades all praise him as upright and generous, a brave general. He'll surely achieve great things in the future. I smiled inwardly. Exactly, daughter just likes his uprightness. Seeing father speak well of Marcus, I knew this matter had hope. Mother saw father and daughter united. Even with many words in her heart, she couldn't speak them out. Thus everyone reached consensus. As for Adrian, in the end he escaped prison but suffered considerable losses. He redeemed Crystal's freedom, personally prepared generous gifts and took her to the Bay household, kneeling to beg Lord Bay's forgiveness. Lord Bay accepted the gifts, humiliated him thoroughly, then withdrew the charges. This matter made Adrian a laughingstock in the capital. The young ladies, who once admired him, now avoided him like the plague. He didn't leave the household for a long time, not daring to meet anyone. After the Lantern Festival, the Blackwood family again sent a matchmaker to our house to discuss marriage. I hid in a small room eavesdropping, clearly hearing Mother tell the matchmaker, "Marriage alliance is fine, but our family only has eyes for the Blackwood's eldest young master. Go back and report to your mistress. If the eldest young master is willing to marry our second miss, then choose a date to come formally propose." The matchmaker couldn't believe her ears, asking again and again to be sure that my mother truly meant the eldest young master, before reluctantly leaving. People in the Duke's household reported back to me that when Lady Catherine and Adrian learned of this, they were so angry they overturned tables and smashed things, loudly cursing that our family was taking advantage to harm them, being unreasonable. But curse as they might, currently the Duke's household's reputation was affected. No noble family wanted to form marriage ties with them. Moreover, to outsiders, the Duke's eldest son wasn't even as good as Adrian. Only our family would choose Marcus. Though others couldn't be chosen, choosing someone who wasn't valued was still better than a libertine like Adrian. Though the world gossiped and talked, they couldn't say anything bad about our family. Still, this action was no different from throwing Adrian's face on the ground and trampling it. The Blackwood family deliberated for a long time and finally accepted this marriage. Our family received the betrothal gifts, both sides exchanged tokens, then chose an auspicious date to marry me off. Mother was both happy and worried, fearing I would suffer after marrying in, so she added to my dowry. The day I left to marry, the wedding procession stretched bright red for 10 miles. Everyone in the city congratulated us. Marcus rode on a tall horse, his handsome appearance extraordinary. Not caring about any opposition, he only knew the Duke's household's face couldn't be lost. Though Marcus wasn't valued, the Blackwood family's wedding ceremony was still extremely grand. The bride's procession stretched endlessly black, the gongs and drums resounded, red silks led the way. This scene was no less than when I married Adrian in my previous life. The sound of firecrackers and congratulatory cheers filled the sky. The matchmakers supported me. Holding a round fan, I stepped into the sedan chair. My wandering gaze accidentally swept past and saw Adrian standing in the wedding procession. His expression was unpleasant, his eyes hazy, not even pretending to be happy. I once thought seeing him humiliated would make me gleeful. But no, my heart was calm as still water. That person was no longer in my heart, so my mood wouldn't be affected by him. I didn't bother looking at him again. Just through the edge of my fan, I glanced at my husband. Marcus wore red robes, his bearing dignified and heroically extraordinary. Marcus was handsome and resolute. Now the more I looked at him, the more pleasing to the eye. People often say, marry a wife, choose virtue, marry a husband, choose character. Not discussing other things, just Marcus's moral character and spirit made me feel he was worth being close to. Even if in the future he remained just a low-ranking military general, I wouldn't regret choosing him. On our wedding night, Marcus sat bashfully beside me on the wedding bed. Compared to his awkwardness, I appeared more relaxed. I put down the round fan, propped my chin and observed his flustered appearance. The more I looked, the more uneasy he became. Finally he said, stammering, My lady," but couldn't speak a complete sentence. Seeing this, I had to help him out. "This phoenix crown is making my neck hurt." Hearing this, he hurriedly removed the phoenix crown for me. Seeing the marks imprinted on my forehead, he immediately felt distressed. He used his rough, calloused hands to gently massage for me. Suddenly realizing this action was somewhat presumptuous, he hurriedly pulled his hands back, then sneakily observed my expression. His hands weren't soft. His message didn't make me very comfortable, but in my heart surged emotions both moving and bitter. I couldn't help my eyes suddenly feeling irritated. In my previous life on my wedding night with Adrian, he was dead drunk when entering the room. I still had to serve him, change his clothes, remove his shoes until midnight. Then he suddenly turned and pressed down on me, his rough actions bringing me only pain. Returning to the present, I smiled gently and said, "Thank you, my lord." Marcus looked at me in a daze, his lips moving slightly as if wanting to say something but then swallowing the words. I laughed lightly. "It's late. Let me serve you to rest." Saying this, I reached for his belt, but he gently grasped my hand, his warm, broad hand completely enveloped mine. "My lady." He looked at me deeply as if asking, "Why did you choose me?" I knew what he wanted to ask. He wanted to know why I chose him and not Adrian. Because in everyone's eyes, from childhood I had always been Adrian's shadow. Everyone thought I would eventually marry him. But no one expected the person I married would be Marcus, the eldest young master no one valued. I spoke truthfully, slowly saying, "You are an upright person with strong character. Truly a good match. Being able to marry you is my good fortune." He gripped my hand tightly and asked, "Were you the young lady in the carriage that day? And you're also the owner of the pawn shop?" Marcus indeed wasn't someone with only strength but lacking wisdom. He must have investigated something. "It was me," I frankly admitted. "So you chose me to repay a favor, right?" His voice was somewhat melancholy, making me unclear about his thoughts. I pulled my hand back and gently patted his cheek, saying, "Both yes and no." I didn't want to be indirect with him, so I spoke directly. "The marriage between our family and the Blackwood family was inevitable. I know your second brother isn't suitable to marry. And you helped me, a true hero. My father also greatly admires you, believing you won't disappoint me." I didn't know if Marcus was satisfied with my answer, but after listening, he took my hand and gently kissed it, firmly saying, "Marcus will definitely not disappoint you." His words made my whole body blush. I hurriedly asked, "Then why did you appear in the mountains that day?" He slowly answered, "That day I was visiting my mother's grave. On the way I saw bandits causing trouble, so I helped. I didn't expect this would create fate between us." I smiled and spoke for him. Marcus blushed slightly. I continued, "Another day, take me to visit your mother's grave." He nodded, then mentioned the matter at the pawn shop. That day my wet nurse had no need for medicine and didn't dare tell me, so she secretly took her hairpin to pawn. When I found out, I took her to redeem it, but didn't expect a dispute with your people. Marcus, afraid I'd misunderstand he was unreasonable, hurriedly explained further. Actually the wet nurse only received 70 when. I didn't know what misunderstanding had occurred, he continued. When I found out she was cheated, anger surged, so I spoke harshly. I gently comforted him. I investigated clearly. Indeed someone in the pawn shop was doing shady dealings. They altered the pawn tickets themselves and took money. I've dismissed them all. Marcus shook his head sadly. I don't even have money for the wet nurse's medicine. I didn't expect our life in the Duke's household would be so difficult. I could imagine if Marcus was someone worth entrusting myself to, I would definitely consider everything for him. While I was lost in thought, Marcus had bent down to remove my shoes and socks. I suddenly woke up, clearly knowing his intentions. My face suddenly flushed red. Marcus with his handsome appearance slowly approached me. I held my breath and gently closed my eyes. The moon bewitches distant travelers, flowers bloom like jade. It was at that moment I truly said farewell to the past to begin a new life. The next day, Marcus and I went to his mother's grave. He paid respects while his wet nurse stood beside burning paper money. Marcus reverently said, "Mother in heaven, your son has married and established a household. I hope Mother won't worry too much about your son's marriage." 3 days later was the day I returned home to visit my parents. When my parents saw my rosy, vibrant face, they knew Marcus had treated me well and felt somewhat relieved. Marcus was busy with military affairs. On the 7th day after our wedding, he returned to the barracks. The days after that, my life in the Duke's household wasn't easy at all. Especially my mother-in-law Lady Catherine, who was Adrian's birth mother. Because I had humiliated her son, she often joined with other branches of the household to make things difficult for me. Every 3 days or so they found ways to pressure me, But I didn't mind. Whatever schemes they had were just old tricks, making me kneel in the ancestral hall to copy scriptures or confining me. I still had good food and people to serve me. Nothing really harmful. Before becoming a bride, I had already calculated and bought a house and land myself, planning that if there was a chance, I would separate and live independently, not wanting to be entangled with them. As for Adrian, I heard that since I entered the household, he became increasingly unstable, happy one moment, angry the next, unable to focus on anything. Sometimes he would vent his anger on those around him. Though I kept my distance from him, the rear household wasn't large. We still had to meet face to face daily. Every time we met, his eyes were full of resentment and anger, as if I had betrayed him. Every 3 years he had to take the military examinations. You know, Adrian always paid attention to me, so he hated me even more. Another month passed. A military report came from the border. Marcus had achieved merit in suppressing rebellion and was promoted 2 ranks, becoming a military general of the 7th rank. In my previous life, it took 2 more years before he reached 7th rank, but now our fates were intertwined and everything had changed. When the Duke returned from court with good news, I was being punished by Lady Catherine to kneel in the ancestral hall. The reason wasn't worth mentioning. Just that today I planned to go out to check the accounts, but was given trouble by some servants at the gate. Belle argued with them and was pushed down. This matter reached Lady Catherine's ears. As soon as I tried to explain, she dumped all blame on me, accusing me of being disrespectful and unfilial. That night when Marcus returned from receiving his reward and learned about this, he was angry and wanted to find Lady Catherine to demand justice for me. His protection moved me, but in the end I still stopped him. I want to discuss something with you, I said, then expressed my intention to separate households and leave the Duke's residence. Marcus knew I had suffered for the past 10 days and had long intended to live separately. Now that he had a family, as long as the Duke agreed, we could move to the new house I had bought. My only worry was that father-in-law wouldn't agree. Marcus understood the Duke valued face and feared that his son wanting to separate households right after marriage would make the world gossip. Don't worry, my lord, I said gently. Leave everything to me. I already have a plan. Now Lady Catherine sees me as a thorn in her eye, only hoping to quickly drive us out of the household. With her adding pressure, we don't worry the Duke won't agree. Marcus nodded slightly and said, if we separate, I'll only take back my birth mother's belongings. I don't care about the Duke's household assets. I replied, but your mother's belongings and my dowry cannot be missing. After discussing with Marcus, I understood everything clearly. The next day, he returned to the military camp again. I took the opportunity to meet Lady Catherine to discuss separating households. Lady Catherine pretended to be difficult on the surface, but in her heart only hoped we would leave the household soon. Her mouth questioned whether I was deliberately making things difficult for her. I remained calm and respectfully said, this foolish daughter-in-law often causes trouble for mother, but fortunately mother is kind and has instructed me to correct my mistakes many times. Now Adrian's examinations are approaching. Mother still has to worry about him. If small matters concerning me affect his studies, then I truly couldn't bear the burden. Better that I move out so mother can have peace. I used Adrian as an excuse. Lady Catherine fully understood my hidden meaning. To her, nothing was more important than her son's civil service examinations. So anyone who dared affect Adrian's future prospects would certainly be a great criminal. Finally, Lady Catherine pretended to advise me a couple sentences, then agreed to discuss household separation with the Duke. The Duke naturally wasn't happy, but couldn't resist the sweet words from Lady Catherine. Finally he nodded in agreement. I requested to retrieve Marcus's birth mother's belongings and my dowry. They didn't dare make it difficult. I had already prepared a complete list of items beforehand and brought it before Lady Catherine. I said, Mother, this is the list of Lady Dong's wedding gifts recorded in the household accounts by the former housekeeper. Though the Dong family has now declined, in the past they were a family given imperial favor. Lady Dong's grandfather was a founding minister, and the marriage between the Dong and Blackwood families was decreed by the emperor. When Lady Dong married, the Empress Dowager and Empress bestowed countless precious treasures, piled high like mountains, making people's eyes dazzle. It was as magnificent as a princess getting married. Beside Lady Catherine, an old nanny mockingly said, Oh, how filial. Why bring a list to check? Are you afraid our grand lady would keep Marcus's belongings? I remained calm and replied. This daughter-in-law naturally trusts mother. It's just been so long, I fear there might be mistakes. Better to check carefully. Taking too little or too much wouldn't be good, right, mother? Lady Catherine's mouth twitched after hearing this. She waved her hand. As you wish. I smiled, cleared my throat, then began reading the list aloud. 800 taels of white silver, 212 houses, 5 estates, 3,000 acres of land, an 8-step yellow rosewood bed, a rosewood arhat bed, a Huangwali wood imperial concubine bed. Lady Catherine's expression grew uglier by the moment. As I read each item, servants came to find it and put a red label on it. I continued, a pair of gold, inlaid jade roy scepters and cloud agate, a pair of blue porcelain plum vases, a pair of jade horses, 2 sandalwood prayer bead strings, a yellow rosewood carrying case. Lady Catherine's hand holding the teacup began trembling. I still continued, 3 white porcelain fruit plates, a complete agate tea set, pine and cypress eternal spring. Suddenly a maid hurriedly stuck a red label on the tea set Lady Catherine was holding. Lady Catherine raised her eyebrows angrily and shouted, "What is this nonsense?" The maid fearfully withdrew her hand. I pretended to be innocent, eyes wide. Mother, the tea set you're using is part of Lady Dong's dowry. Lady Catherine's face turned red then green, looking like she'd swallowed a fly. She heavily set down the teacup and stood up angrily saying, "You continue checking." I stood up and respectfully saw her off. Please take your time, mother. Lady Dong's dowry was indeed extremely abundant. Just the inventory took 3 days, and moving everything took 4 more days to complete. After everything was moved, the vast Duke's household suddenly became strangely empty. Even the Huangwali wood furniture set that the Duke loved most, placed in the main hall, was moved away. Sparrow laughed mockingly and told me that when we were moving, Grand Lady Catherine was so angry she ground her teeth. How satisfying. I was counting the pile of assets and banknotes while casually replying. The things moved away are just a small portion. The truly valuable assets are all here. Sparrow sighed. So our Lord is really good at hiding things. Outside everyone thinks he's empty-handed. Who knew his birth mother left such a huge fortune? After the moving was complete, I wrote a letter to Marcus telling him not to worry. Since leaving the Duke's household, I was like a bird freed from its cage, no longer having to look at anyone's face to live. When spring came and planting season approached, I chose a day to go to the fields to inspect. Only recently did I learn that the fields adjacent to my land were originally Marcus's birth mother's private property. All these years the Duke's household had hidden this fact, renting it to farmers with the income going into Lady Catherine's pocket, not leaving Marcus a single coin. Today I came to resolve this matter. Learning from the previous mountain bandit experience, this time besides maids, coachmen and servants, I also brought 6 strong household guards to escort the carriage. When we arrived, Steward's son, who was responsible for managing the farmland, seeing my young age, tried to intimidate and brush me off. I wasn't anxious, using both kindness and authority to negotiate with him, finally retrieving the land deed. On the way back, I felt light-hearted and happy, preparing to board the carriage when suddenly a tall reddish-brown horse stood beside my carriage. I suppressed my unease and looked up to see Adrian sitting on horseback. He clasped his hands with a faint smile. What a coincidence. I was just passing by here. Are you planning to return? I heard this mountain road isn't easy to travel. Why don't I accompany you? On the road we can help each other. I smiled calmly, but inwardly thought, what coincidence. Our return routes aren't even in the same direction. Travel with you, truly delusional. I turned away, not bothering to look at him. Taking Belle's hand to board the carriage. Sparrow in the carriage softly asked me, "My lady, could second young master have come here looking for someone?" Adrian's behavior was truly improper. Even Sparrow, a simple girl, noticed it. No need to pay attention. I closed my eyes to rest, thinking to myself, you who previously didn't bother to look at me. Now that I'm someone else's wife you come seeking me. I wonder what scheme he has. There's still exactly 1 month until the military examinations. He's truly too idle. Halfway along the road it suddenly began pouring rain. The mountain road was already rough. Now with the rain pouring down, everything became even more difficult. Horses and carriage wheels sank in the mud, unable to move at all. Adrian spurred his horse to come beside my carriage, saying, There's an abandoned temple ahead. Why don't we go there to shelter from the rain? After the rain stops, we can continue. I thought given the current situation, this was the only option, so the whole group changed direction toward the abandoned temple. Though the temple was old, fortunately it didn't leak. Belle and Sparrow swept a dry spot and spread a mat for me to sit and rest. The maids quickly started a fire while the household guards withdrew outside, leaving only me and 2 maids inside the temple. The weather was cold. The warmth had just returned when the chill struck it back. I hugged the hand warmer, watching the dancing flames before me in contemplation. Adrian stood at the door looking at me and said, "I have something I'd like to ask you, Luna. I wonder if you could give me a moment." Clearly he was deliberately picking a fight. I didn't bother with courtesy, coldly refusing. Not convenient. He acted as if he didn't hear, stepping over the threshold. Seeing this, I immediately stood up and retreated. Belle and Sparrow also quickly shielded me. Adrian mocked, "I'm not a mountain bandit. Why does Luna guard against me like this?" I stiffly replied, "Second uncle, we must maintain proper boundaries inside and outside. If you have something to say, please say it from there. I can hear clearly." My cold tone made Adrian angry. He walked straight toward me, but was blocked by Belle and Sparrow. He questioned, "I just need you to answer one thing. Are you angry at me because of Crystal?" I knew he was deliberately entangling me for this reason. To put it plainly, it was just his wounded pride. He refused to face the truth. I thought I should cut things off decisively with him. This life I didn't want any more entanglement with Adrian. I stepped forward past the 2 maids and calmly said, "Previously I devoted myself wholeheartedly to you, but you treated me as if I didn't exist. You know clearly in your heart how I felt about you. The person you liked was never me. Now I've awakened and no longer bother you. Why won't you let go?" My answer didn't calm Adrian. He loudly asked, "Then why did you choose my elder brother? What do I lack compared to him? Did you think because he has his mother's dowry he's richer? I'll have much more than him in the future." He truly didn't understand what others said. I suppressed my anger and calmly replied, "Who I marry is my right. I hope second uncle won't impose your own views on others. I wish second uncle finds someone suitable soon." Adrian still stubbornly said, "You married my elder brother to humiliate me, to deliberately take revenge on me for Crystal's matter, right?" He continued slandering Marcus, saying, "You think Marcus is a gentleman. He doesn't visit brothels only because he has no money, not because he's upright or anything." At this point I truly got angry and spoke up. "I understand my husband's character clearly. I don't need you to tell me. I've already married him, so I'll be of one heart and virtue with him. I am your sister-in-law. Please be careful with your words." Adrian trembled, pointing at me and saying angrily, "You'll regret it. You'll definitely regret it." I looked straight into his eyes without fear, firmly answering, "I won't regret it. In my previous life I died once. If I choose wrong again this time, I still absolutely won't regret it." Adrian looked at me with angry eyes, but finally said nothing more, just wiped his face and rushed out the door into the rain. His servant ran after him calling, "Second young master. Second young master." I sighed, hugging the hand warmer and sitting down on the mat. Belle and Sparrow carefully didn't dare breathe heavily. I gently said, "Today's events must not be spread outside." Hearing this, Belle and Sparrow immediately knelt down, swearing they wouldn't reveal half a word. When the rain stopped, I ordered the carriage prepared to return home. Back at home, I was sitting in the study recording accounts when Belle hurriedly came to report, "My lady, someone from the Duke's household came with news. Second young master unfortunately fell from his horse on the way back and got caught in the rain. He currently has a high fever and is delirious." My hand continued writing without pause. Belle hesitated a moment then continued, "Grand Lady Catherine sent word asking you to visit." I replied indifferently, "I'm not a doctor." Belle seemed troubled and added, "Grand Lady Catherine's maid said she wants to see you to ask about something, insisting you must go." I put down my brush and set off for the Duke's household. When I arrived, I learned the Duke had entered the palace for an imperial audience and wasn't home. A maid led me to Adrian's courtyard. In the courtyard, housekeepers, old women and maids were bustling about boiling medicine and water, everyone busy as shuttles. I was led into Adrian's bedroom where Lady Catherine sat beside the bed, looking at me with resentful eyes. On the bed, Adrian had a high fever, his face flushed red, mumbling deliriously, "Luna, don't hate me." I pretended not to hear, naturally walking over to bow to Lady Catherine, then pretended to care about Adrian's illness. Lady Catherine gritted her teeth and said in a voice full of hatred, "Don't think I don't know. Today it was because of meeting you that Adrian fell from his horse. If anything bad happens to my son, I won't let you off." Lady Catherine at this point didn't bother maintaining face anymore, directly confronting me. This mother and son were truly unreasonable. I also didn't need to yield. I coldly replied, "In this world, how can there be a matter of the second uncle falling ill and the eldest sister-in-law having to worry? If word spreads, wouldn't it make the world laugh? Mother may not care about my reputation, but surely you must consider second uncle's reputation. The matter with Miss Crystal hasn't been long past, and the military examinations are approaching. Second uncle must protect his reputation." My words left Lady Catherine speechless, unable to reply. She had to rely on the old nanny to support her. Lady Catherine was so angry she stammered, You, truly a disaster." I calmly adjusted my sleeves, pretending to say, "Mother doesn't need to worry too much. Second uncle has good fortune. Perhaps he'll be well again tomorrow." Lady Catherine gritted her teeth. "You'd better pray for his safety." I thought coldly, though I have no intention of revenge against him, I also won't go so far as to pray for him. Adrian had a high fever all night. The people in the courtyard forced me to stay, as if wanting to make me unable to leave until he woke up. I had to endure until the next morning. After eating just a few bites of breakfast, someone came calling, saying Adrian had awakened and wanted to see me. I had a cold expression. Belle and Sparrow supported me going in, but were immediately stopped. Adrian weakly leaned against the pillow. Lady Catherine and a maid beside him were serving him medicine. As soon as he saw me, he pushed the medicine bowl aside, hoarsely saying, "Mother, let me speak a few words with her." Lady Catherine glanced at me, then led everyone out. "Luna." Adrian reached his hand toward me. I stood still as a wooden statue, not moving, 3 zhang away from his bed. "Second uncle, please maintain propriety." In my previous life after marrying him, he often called me this way. But now hearing that name again, my heart surged with uncomfortable feelings. He said sadly, "I just had a dream." That dream was so real it was as if it had happened in real life. I felt puzzled, my heart somewhat unsettled. He coughed a few times then continued, "In the dream you married me, but I didn't truly love you. When you were 10 months pregnant, I married your sister as a concubine. The day I brought her through the door was also the day you had a difficult birth and passed away." His words struck like lightning. My whole body trembled uncontrollably. What was he saying? How could he know? Could it be he also remembered the previous life? "Luna, I saw in the dream you breathed your last breath along with our unborn child. I regretted it immensely. I held you continuously calling your name, but you never woke up again." He spoke then coughed violently, his words broken. He remembered. He truly remembered. My whole being spun dizzily. I had to hold onto the octagonal table beside me to stand steady. Adrian cried out loud, "Finally I understand why you hate me, why you refuse to marry me. It's because I betrayed you. Luna, I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me?" I clenched my fists tightly, nails digging into my palms until it hurt. Only pain could help me stay clear-headed. His belated remorse was no different than trampling on weeds. Even if he knelt down begging and crying pitifully, it couldn't compensate for the harm I suffered in my previous life. My unborn child, my parents who died of grief because of him. Just a few tears and apologies hoping to receive my forgiveness. "I, Luna Sterling, am not so cheap." He continued sobbing, but I turned my back, fiercely pinching my thigh to stay calm. Adrian's sobs echoed throughout the room. After a long while, I finally managed to suppress my emotions, taking several deep breaths and swallowing those worthless tears. I turned back with a faint smile. "Second uncle, you're delirious with fever. How can you believe what happens in dreams is real? You're just having a fever. Quickly drink your medicine and rest well." That wasn't a dream. That was the truth that happened. He jumped off the bed, trying to embrace me. I immediately avoided him, coldly saying, "Second uncle, don't force me to call for help." He frowned, looking at me with melancholy eyes, then warily sat back on the bed. "After you died, elder brother even beat me, scolding me as a heartless betrayer, unworthy of marrying you. I felt my heart ache. So after I died in my previous life, these things still happened. Adrian held his head full of regret. I harmed you. I don't know how to make it up to you. But now it's too late. Water spilled cannot be recovered. Knowing late is good enough, I calmly replied. Second uncle, now I'm already your sister-in-law. Let's let the past flow away, each person settle into their own life. He suddenly raised his hand, eyes surprised. You indeed remember. You also know those things weren't dreams. I didn't know if his words today were real or fake. But I view everything as just delirious words from illness. When I walk through this door, I won't remember anymore, and I hope you'll never mention it again. Your elder brother, and I still have a whole life ahead. I don't want unfavorable rumors reaching his ears. Adrian's eyes reddened as he stared at me intently, but I didn't let him speak. I just bowed and said, Second uncle, take care. Just as I turned to leave, his determined voice rang out behind me, Luna, I won't give up. I'll definitely pass the exams and win you back. I laughed coldly, turning back to answer. I'd rather die again than marry you. After speaking, I left the room and heard the sound of things being smashed inside. Lady Catherine rushed over angrily asking, What did you just say to him? I just shrugged. Mother, I take my leave. I quietly walked past her. I thought about my previous life. In my previous life, Adrian's passing the exams was thanks to me supervising him day and night, forcing him to study hard. I wonder if this life he can pass on his own. Or as he said, will he keep pursuing me? But I absolutely don't want to return to him again. I calculated that if Adrian really harassed me, I would follow Marcus to the military camp to avoid him for a while. If he still dared to persist, I wasn't afraid of him either. His nature was hard to change. I didn't believe Adrian would change his nature just because of a dream. More than a month later, the examination results were announced. Adrian failed to make the list. Though I knew I shouldn't rejoice at others' failures, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. My joy was even greater when afterward, Adrian, too depressed by failure, drowned his sorrows in wine and accidentally insulted his distant cousin Miss Sophia Tao. I had met Sophia in my previous life. She had ordinary looks, an arrogant temperament, and no noteworthy talents. The day I married Adrian, she even showed jealousy in front of me. Thinking back, perhaps Sophia had secretly loved him for a long time. Though the Tao family didn't hold high positions, they were a clean, respectable family with close relations to Adrian's mother. The Tao family wouldn't accept this loss, forcing Lady Catherine to marry Sophia to Adrian as his principal wife. On their wedding day, I also attended. While it was Adrian's happy day, he wore a dark expression, eyes full of resentment constantly directed at me. I just smiled, raising my wine cup to congratulate him, inwardly thanking Sophia for helping me escape this biggest trouble. In good spirits, I drank several more cups of wine. Not long after the wedding, rumors constantly came from the Duke's household about Sophia. I heard Sophia wasn't easy to deal with. As soon as she entered, she replaced all the maids in Adrian's courtyard. The newly hired ones either had pockmarked faces or thick waists. When Adrian secretly went out to play, Sophia reported it to Lady Catherine. Because of his exam failure, the Duke and Lady Catherine already harbored resentment toward Adrian. Now they were even stricter. They forbade him from associating with bad friends and wouldn't allow him to leave without permission. Even his monthly allowance was cut. Pushed into a corner, Adrian angrily argued with Sophia daily. His parents also had no peace. When New Year approached, Marcus and I had been together nearly a year. Since his last promotion, Marcus hadn't returned home again. I only knew he was promoted another rank, becoming a battalion commander. On Little New Year's Eve, Marcus finally returned. He entered the house looking exhausted, road dust still on his armor. I served him bathing and changing clothes. After half a year apart, Marcus looked even more steady and imposing. When I helped him change clothes, I saw his back full of scars. The newest was still red and raw. Marcus soaked in the bath. I gently touched the scars on his back, tears suddenly welling up uncontrollably. I understood that throughout this past year, he had endured so much hardship. No one in the world believed my marrying him was right. They even mocked and gossiped. Marcus wasn't someone who craved fame or position, but for me, he had risked his life many times, coming close to death, just in exchange for consecutive achievements. 3 promotions in 1 year. Marcus held my hand and gently said, "My lady, make me a safety charm." I tried to hold back tears and answered, "Yes. Tomorrow I'll go to the 3 Pure Temple to request a peace talisman for you." He tilted his head to gently kiss my cheek, eyes full of affection. In that moment, I suddenly remembered Adrian's words about my previous life. When I died, Marcus had beaten him out of excessive grief. Could it be in my previous life he had loved me? If that was truly so, heaven hadn't treated me unfairly. In my previous life I died from loving wrongly, but this life I could live happily beside someone sincere. I tightly embraced his broad back. His eyes looked at me with even more tenderness. The bath became prolonged. He then carried me to the bedroom. On the second day of New Year, I followed him back to my natal home. I had prepared gifts for each family member. My elder brother and sister-in-law also returned for New Year. The whole family gathered together to eat the New Year meal. Marcus's current position wasn't big or small, but he was only in his early 20s. If he maintained this momentum, his future prospects would certainly be extremely broad. My mother originally wasn't satisfied with this son-in-law, but now seeing his rapid advancement and considerate treatment of me, she felt more at ease. During the banquet, I deliberately observed Jade. Previously I thought she loved Adrian and would use any means to enter the Blackwood family, even as a concubine. But this time returning home, she seemed to secretly pay attention to Marcus, sneaking glances at him then shyly smiling. I finally understood, Jade didn't truly love Adrian, but just wanted to compete with me. I controlled myself not to reveal anything, wanting to see if she dared play her old tricks again and whether Marcus would be seduced by her like his brother. Just after the 5th day of New Year, Marcus left home again. I saw him off at the door. Marcus lingered, reluctant to leave, turning back to embrace me several more times before spurring his horse away. A month later, I was diagnosed as pregnant, likely conceived during New Year. Because I had difficult childbirth in my previous life, I carried fear about giving birth in my heart. So after confirming the good news, I didn't dare go out, not even stepping past my room door. I frequently invited doctors to check my pulse. Mother, hearing I was pregnant, immediately valued it greatly, sending 4 experienced midwives to care for me, plus a group of close maids to help manage all matters big and small in the household. Fortunately, my body had been well nourished these past 2 years. Throughout the pregnancy I had no morning sickness. Only at first I lost sleep from overthinking, but otherwise encountered no worrying problems. I sent a letter informing Marcus of the good news, telling him to rest assured and recuperate in the military camp, not to worry too much. After stabilizing the baby, I continued managing household affairs, but because of my heavy body, I couldn't go out freely as before. When less than 2 months remained until delivery, good news came from the border. It turned out when Marcus was stationed at the border, he had defeated a group of foreign enemies. Among the prisoners were remnants of previous rebels. Marcus had successfully persuaded them to defect, leading troops thousands of miles to attack, completely uprooting the remaining rebels, resolving the threat to the court. Hearing this news, the emperor was extremely pleased, specially promoting Marcus 3 ranks, conferring him as general of pacifying the distant, with principal military 5th rank. Since this news arrived, from our household to the whole capital was bustling. Though the main army hadn't returned to court yet, rewards from the palace had already been delivered. Guests coming to congratulate crowded our doorway. Because I was pregnant and Marcus hadn't returned, I refused to meet anyone. But guests insisted on leaving congratulatory gifts. To not offend anyone, I accepted all the gifts but recorded everything carefully, then reported to the court. The Duke's household also sent people to congratulate. Gifts from family I accepted with a calm heart but also sent return gifts. On mid-autumn night, the victorious army returned. Marcus, after the long journey, had returned to the capital. First he had to enter the palace to meet the emperor. Only after the palace audience could Marcus return home. Right at mid-autumn, plus Marcus's promotion, and I was about to give birth, it could be said 3 joys came at once. Marcus and I discussed planning to hold a viewing flower appreciation banquet at our residence on mid-autumn night, inviting relatives from both sides. Marcus worried I would be tired, especially inviting my mother and sister-in-law to help manage everything. He also found 4 more housekeepers to handle the banquet. That day, male and female guests sat separately in 2 courtyards. The banquet tables were fully laid with shrimp, crab, chicken, duck, fresh fish, plus all kinds of fruits and flowers. There were also performers from the western regions entertaining. The atmosphere was extremely lively. We had also sent invitations to the Duke's household. The Duke, his wife, and third branch uncle attended the banquet. Only Adrian claimed illness and didn't come. During the banquet, I became the center of attention. Everyone raised cups to congratulate me. I used tea instead of wine to return toast to each person. My mother and Lady Catherine sat at the same table. After a few cups of wine, she became even more pleased, receiving everyone's praise. She then said she had long seen my son-in-law was talented. Often said good wine fears no ally. Previously it was just lack of opportunity. When I first married Marcus, mother had been looked down upon in official circles, not daring to raise her head. Now she could hold her head high with pride. The aunts sitting nearby also chimed in. Sister Luna truly has good fortune and discerning eyes. A son-in-law both brave and devoted to Miss Sterling to the utmost. Everyone must admire her. Another added, we must also say Miss Sterling has the appearance of bringing prosperity to her husband. Married just over a year and her husband has already been promoted 6 ranks. Truly talented man and beautiful woman, a perfect match. Everyone continued wanting to toast me. I smiled in response while Lady Catherine, though her face still wore a smile, her eyes held no joy. Her son failed the exam, her daughter-in-law was worthless, her family was in discord, completely opposite to the glory on our side. How could her heart be at ease? The ancients said one be too arrogant when successful. How can the hearts of those who fail be peaceful? And I at this time was in my spring of success. I truly had no time to throw stones down the well. While everyone was busy raising cups to toast, Belle stepped lightly forward and whispered in my ear. Third Miss asked Cuckoo to send word, she's already led the general outside. I quietly turned my gaze toward Jade's seat and saw she had left long ago. Using the excuse of adjusting my clothes, I left the banquet. Belle draped a cloak over me and led me along a small path to the bamboo garden beside the rear rockery. Across from me I saw Jade and Cuckoo sneaking glances around, clearly with impure intentions. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I wanted to see what tricks Jade would play and whether Marcus would fall for her schemes. A moment later, footsteps sounded from ahead. Marcus, wearing a long blue robe, slowly approached under a servant's guidance. My heart suddenly jumped like a little deer. I didn't understand why I felt somewhat nervous. Just then, Jade seized the opportunity, pretending to fall from behind the rockery, throwing herself straight at Marcus. But he was quick and agile. Seeing the figure, he immediately dodged to one side. Jade fell hard to the ground, hitting the blue stone floor heavily. The impact sounded clearly. This fall wasn't light. Even I couldn't help shrinking back. Marcus recognized the person before him was a woman and hurriedly retreated several steps. The servant quickly drew his baton from behind his back, pointing straight at Jade and shouting, "Shameless woman, how dare you attempt to assassinate the general?" The servant raised his baton to strike. Cuckoo panikedly rushed out to protect her mistress, begging while helping Jade up. "Please spare her, General. This is our family's third miss." Jade's face was bruised and swollen, hair disheveled. Marcus became even more cautious, frowning and asking, "Third miss, why are you here?" Jade's face was full of tears, stammering, unable to speak. Marcus raised the letter in his hand, sternly asking, "Did you write this letter? Saying you had secret information to report, do you know falsifying military orders is a serious crime?" Jade trembled. This servant doesn't know. I just happened to be passing by." An attendant stepped forward a few paces, sniffed, then held up the letter. "General," he said, "it's definitely her who wrote it. The perfume on the letter is exactly the same as Third Mrs. scent." Jade had no words to refute. Marcus tore up the letter, his voice cold. "Considering you're my wife's sister, and this is your first offense, I'll spare you this time. But if there's a next time, don't blame me for disregarding family ties." Having spoken, Marcus left angrily, leaving Jade standing there stamping her feet and crying. I witnessed the whole drama with satisfaction in my heart, leaving my hiding place and returning to the banquet as if nothing had happened. When I returned, I saw the Blackwood family's female guests had almost all left. My mother looked at me saying, "Your mother-in-law had a long face, as if we owed her tens of thousands of taels of silver. Right after you left, she also excused herself." I just smiled without saying anything. A while later, Jade finally returned, her face bruised and swollen. On her forehead and nose were even scrapes from the gravel, looking extremely pitiful. Seeing her, The aunts in the clan immediately gathered around to ask. Jade just made excuses that she drank too much wine and accidentally fell on the path. A sister-in-law worriedly said, "Falling this badly, we must invite a doctor to examine you immediately. A young lady's face can't be left with scars." As they spoke, they shifted the topic to Jade's marriage. Jade's birth mother was originally my father's concubine. When my mother was pregnant with me, she volunteered to become a concubine. From then on, she always wanted to find a good husband's family for Jade, but was too picky. Poor families she wouldn't accept. Rich merchant families she also disliked, only wanting to marry into prestigious noble families. My mother had introduced several families, but they still picked and chose. Finally my mother got angry and decided not to interfere anymore. Jade was now nearly 18 and still unmarried. No wonder she was anxious. An aunt then said to me, "Luna, why don't you ask your husband to keep an eye out in the military for any talented young men who haven't established families yet? Find someone to matchmake for Jade." I smiled and answered, "Yes, I'll keep an eye out." In my heart I couldn't help but laugh. The unmarried officers were all minor officials with low positions. I'm afraid they wouldn't match Jade's dream of a sparrow becoming a phoenix. Even Marcus had to reach 6th rank official before she would notice him. I smiled meaningfully and asked Jade, "I wonder what kind of person sister prefers." Jade raised her fan to cover her bruised face and gently answered, "Someone like brother-in-law would be best." She really dared to say that. Before I could speak, my sister-in-law spoke up. "Third Miss truly has great ambitions. When your brother-in-law married second Miss, he was just a 9th rank minor official. Now promoted 6 ranks, rarely seen. If you want to find a husband like that, I'm afraid even the best matchmaker couldn't fulfill that request." My sister-in-law had long been allied with me, having long disliked Jade and her mother. Now with this opportunity, she humiliated Jade before the relatives. Jade felt embarrassed and hurriedly tried to salvage the situation. "Actually it was just a joke. Sister-in-law doesn't need to take it so seriously." Sister-in-law raised her wine cup, half joking. "Your second sister asked kindly, yet you treat it as a joke. How can that be?" Jade was speechless. I smiled to smooth things over. "I'll tell my husband to keep an eye out. There are still many unmarried 9th rank officials." I deliberately went off topic, making Jade flustered with nothing more to say. That night, Marcus tactfully mentioned Jade's matter. Though he was a military general, he wasn't stupid. How could he not see through Jade's ambitions? I thought he would help her cover up, but unexpectedly he spoke frankly. He said now that I was rising in rank, those with calculating schemes like Jade were beginning to appear. This third sister was too scheming. He feared she would cause bigger troubles later. I then mentioned finding a matchmaker for Jade, but Marcus was extremely contemptuous. "A woman so restless, how dare I matchmake for her?" Clearly Marcus didn't like people like Jade. I laughed lightly, pinching his cheek. I was just saying casually. Besides, people I introduce might not catch her eye anyway. Marcus gently said, "Let's not mention it anymore. My lady is tired today, rest early." He blew out the lamp and pulled me onto the bed. 10 months pregnant, 1 day of labor. The day I gave birth, the pain was like dying and coming back to life. The physical pain was secondary, the fear in my heart couldn't be dispelled. The image of dying in difficult childbirth in my previous life weighed heavily on my mind. I feared fainting and never waking again. Marcus kept watch outside the door, wanting to rush in many times but was stopped. I bit down hard on the soft wood, hands gripping the blankets tightly, telling myself I had found someone who truly loved me. This life was still long. I couldn't leave them. With the sound of a baby's first cry, my and Marcus's first child was born. The midwife joyfully announced, "Congratulations, my lady. It's a fair, plump young master." I was too exhausted to speak. Looking at the wrinkled-faced baby, touched tears rolled down my cheeks. Marcus rushed in and knelt by the bed, tightly grasping my hand, eyes red with emotion, unable to speak. Fortune after hardship, how lucky that this life I didn't miss him. I thought to myself. In the following 15 years, Marcus continuously achieved merit and was promoted, reaching the position of General Protector of the Nation, 2nd rank, surpassing even his maternal grandfather's position. When the new emperor ascended the throne, wanting to keep him under control while showing gratitude for his service, the emperor recalled Marcus back to the capital. During this time, I bore him 3 more daughters and 1 son, a full household. As for Jade, After her mother made the decision, she had to marry a count who had lost his wife as a concubine. My parents couldn't stop it, so they let her go. After marriage, Jade fought daily with the daughters-in-law in the household. Later she gave birth to a son, but the old count's joy didn't last long because someone reported the child wasn't his biological son, but the son of one of his own sons. Though this matter was kept very secret, only close family members knew. To preserve reputation, the old count raised his grandson as his own son. Jade was thereafter abandoned, sent to a rural estate under the pretense of recuperating from illness. Adrian and his wife had been married 5 years, but still had no heir. Lady Catherine finally couldn't sit still anymore and added concubines to his rooms. Some became pregnant but were harmed by Sophia and miscarried. The Duke's household saw daily battles between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Sophia retaliated by bringing beautiful women to serve Duke William. The Duke was so bewitched by beauty he forgot heaven and earth, while Lady Catherine was so angry she fell ill. The Duke's household never ceased having troubles. Finally Adrian used the excuse of 7 grounds for divorce to abandon Sophia, escaping from his sea of bitterness. He lived dissolute days, frequenting brothels without being bound by wife and children. He declared that this life, unable to marry the one he truly loved, he'd rather be alone forever. When Adrian was over 30, Duke William and Lady Catherine, seeing the situation couldn't continue, forced him to marry an official's daughter as his principal wife. But unexpectedly, due to his years of debauchery, Adrian had contracted syphilis. He searched everywhere for medicine, suffering greatly. It took 5 years after marriage to finally have a daughter. The other concubines also couldn't give him sons. Adrian's path to the civil service examinations was also not smooth, he kept failing. Meanwhile Marcus achieved high and noble position, appointed as an official. Though Lady Catherine had pulled strings everywhere to help, she still couldn't bring Adrian back to the capital. After Duke William passed away, because the Blackwood family had too few heirs, the title was finally passed to Marcus. As for what happened afterward, everything was already arranged perfectly. The profound lesson from Luna's story teaches us that true love isn't about passionate obsession or societal expectations, but about mutual respect, genuine care, and shared growth. Luna's rebirth gave her the wisdom to see beyond superficial charm and choose a partner who truly valued her. Marcus, despite his humble position, proved that character matters more than status. Meanwhile, those who schemed and betrayed others, Adrian with his infidelity and Jade with her jealousy, ultimately faced their karma. The story reminds us that we shouldn't be blinded by appearances or family pressure, but should have the courage to choose our own path based on genuine values. Sometimes the person who seems less impressive to the world might be the one who treasures us most. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.